Hello friends, this is Jim Blake, the CEO at Unity Village. Thanks so much for the invitation to be a part of this virtual reunion. I'm honored to be with you. Some of the strongest and most creative ministers in the Unity movement have come out of the Urban Ministerial School. I congratulate all of you for your accomplishments in the field and also for operating and supporting a school where so many of our leaders have received a deep and excellent New Thought education. Founding the Urban School in 1979 truly was a divine idea, and I imagine you've heard the Village will be remodeling and renaming the old clubhouse in honor of Reverend Dr. Ruth Mosley, who was such a light in our movement. It will be used as a meeting space and Airbnb. While you are serving people through your ministry, programs, and communities, we at Unity World Headquarters carry on the Fillmore's legacy by sharing the Unity teachings through our 100-year-old ministries of prayer, publishing, and sacred campus activities and amenities. We too have taken up the challenge to innovate the way we approach our mission to help and serve by evolving these century-old pillars of our work. Last year, I was asked to speak about what our legacy of practical spirituality might look like today. I'd like to share with you that talk where we explore what Unity and the whole New Thought movement might consider from an evolutionary and innovative perspective to reach and serve more people, even if they are not involved in a spiritual community. So join me in this glimpse of what we might consider as we endeavor to help and serve more people. I will see you shortly on the other side. With today's theme centering around practical spirituality, I thought it might be interesting to explore how together we might continue to share a New Thought message in a world where fewer and fewer people are affiliated with any religious tradition, and many are even turned away by the concept of spirituality. So what does practical spirituality look like at a time when traditional faith systems with Christian theology are shrinking, and the next generation of people are largely unaffiliated with a religious tradition at all? Before I delve deeply into that question, let me share a little background with you related to our evolution at Unity World Headquarters and my own personal journey. In the fall of 2016, when I returned to the Village campus in the role of CEO, I was still relatively raw from the death of my 25-year-old daughter who had lost a battle with cancer. It was a heart-wrenching and horrifying experience, to say the least. And our time spent in hospitals, clinics, and chemo waiting rooms, that experience brought me face to face with the pure volume of people suffering. The suffering of those afflicted with the disease, the friends and family members left feeling helpless, all of them, including myself, searching for means to cope. With this new perception, I then began to notice and see all of the areas of suffering throughout our society. I began to really become present with the incredible volume of people struggling with depression, anxiety, disease, and economic inequities. I saw the enormity of stress on the majority of our population and its impact on the mental and physical well-being of every individual. All of this led me to a simple conclusion as to my calling to serve at Unity World Headquarters. I wanted us to help and serve people by providing tools and resources that would help people cope with all of the suffering and struggle prevalent in their lives. It was crystal clear to me that Unity and New Thought as a whole were more than equipped with our unique gift of teachings to bring relief to the masses in mind, body, and spirit. Upon arrival at the Village, our leaders, in conjunction with our 300-plus community of associates, worked to redefine our mission and purpose. Today, our mission statement is to help and serve more people through prayer, publishing, and community. This statement took hold on grounds and drives every decision we make, whether it be business-related or ministry and program-related. As we begin to explore what this looked like in expression, we turn to the hundreds of thousands of constituents we serve all across our ministries to ask what was needed from us. Resoundingly, the response was, we want tools and resources that help us with everyday human struggles and personal growth. The Board of Directors, our executive team, and our committed associates all came together to architect our entire strategic plan around meeting the personal and practical spiritual needs of the various audiences we serve. Grounded in principle, we did this knowing and trusting that if we do this work, the people, talent, prosperity, funding, and other resources we need will come forth as needed and when needed. Thus far, that has held true even beyond our expectations. A pillar of our commitment to our new mission was to reestablish and prioritize a new outreach program from Unity Village. It provides booklets to be used by our churches and individuals in their respective communities on topics like facing cancer with faith, grief, worthiness, and addiction. These materials have been distributed in local communities by over 300 churches across the U.S. We will unveil a new website design that is completely redesigned to help people connect quickly and easily with resources to help them in their time of need. It will be less about our organization and the specific ministries and more about the supportive, relevant content and practices offered by them. People aren't looking for who we are and how we are structured. They're looking for the powerful transformational resources and teachings we can offer them. So when they visit this new website, the content will be grouped according to healing, grief, guidance, prosperity, and other topics relevant to their lives. We know the terms people search for online, and we know what's troubling them when they call Silent Unity. So this gives us a good sense of how we can more practically help and serve them. The religious demographic profile we serve is extremely broad. Nearly all of the Christian denominations consume our offerings in numbers you might not expect. Daily Word and Silent Unity serve constituent populations that are made up of 20% Catholic, 20% Baptist, and 40% other, with the final 20% being Unity True students. That's helpful to keep in mind when you see what Unity publishes and offers online. We're aiming for an audience that includes but also reaches beyond people familiar with New Thought. That's why it might seem very basic to some of us, but it's new to someone just discovering this way of thinking, just realizing they can choose to be positive, just understanding that their thoughts have creative power, or beginning to believe their essence is divine. The Fillmore's early intentions for the Unity philosophy was for it to be an adjunct to people's spiritual lives and not convert them to anything. I believe today, more than ever, our New Thought teachings are positioned perfectly to serve the melting pot of spiritual seekers searching for practical resources to help them in their daily struggles. Let's look at who they are. The nones, or non-affiliated population in the U.S., according to an October 2019 study from Pew Research, now stands at nearly 30%. Protestantism is down 51%, while the Catholic tradition has fallen 23% since 2009. Over half of Americans say they attend religious services only a few times a year. 3/4 of baby boomers describe themselves as Christians, while only half of millennials describe themselves as Christian. 4 in 10 millennials are religious nones, and roughly 2/3 of millennials attend worship services a few times a year or less. So let's revisit our question from earlier now. What does practical spirituality look like? At a time when traditional faith systems with Christian theology are shrinking and the next generation of people are largely unaffiliated with a religious tradition. Based on the data and our 3 years of anecdotal experience, it is clear to us that the majority of seekers are searching for content and messages that are less about theology and more about coping with the personal circumstances in their own lives. Practical spirituality to them looks like basic useful tools and messages to help them deal with the disturbances in their lives, as well as provide a path for personal growth. Collectively, one of our biggest challenges is to present the teaching tools and resources we have in language both secular and religious, so it may be heard by populations and generations respective to each sector. Then once we have our messaging in place, we must then learn to connect to those we serve in the mediums and spaces that are convenient to them. Print, digital, social media, podcasts, and apps. This will allow us to present the tools and resources that introduce them to our philosophy and guide them along their specific personal evolution. Equally as important, there are scores of marginalized populations, the African American population, the Hispanic population, the LGBTQ population, to name a few, that are wildly underserved in relation to spiritual tools and resources dedicated to them and their specific journeys. These populations want and deserve to be seen and heard with tools and resources specific to their circumstances in today's world, each of them with a completely different view and completely different experience of the world and from each other. Other important considerations include making our teachings accessible to those with disabilities or people who are simply getting older. At Unity, we are blessed to be able to offer Daily Word in large type, as well as Braille and audio. We do our best to be thoughtful with color and design in booklets and magazines to maximize readability for easier consumption of our messaging. For those of us that include buildings and campuses in our delivery models, physical accessibility must remain top of mind as well. For instance, last year we commissioned a professional assessment of the core Unity campus to help us find ways to make it more accessible for visitors and events. Ideas that weren't considered when the village was built 100 years ago. It's vitally important we acknowledge that the world works much differently from their place in today's society. Practical spirituality to these populations may look much the same in terms of the types of resources, tools, and content, but it must include messaging and acknowledgement of their unique identities and circumstances. Practical spirituality doesn't mean we lead with the deepest levels of knowledge and experience related to our New Thought traditions, nor is it the strictest adherence to our doctrine and our own inherent dogma. Before approaching those levels, the student must practically, in their day-to-day experience, come to terms with their own self-worth and self-acceptance in order to be able to hear deeply and intrinsically what it means to be at one with the divine within. They must have time to properly be introduced and to digest this new philosophy and the associated changes in thinking and management of thoughts and emotions. Most of us needed that time too. They must have time to understand at a deep level what it means to be an outward expression of the divine in a benevolent universe designed to support them. They must have time to develop the ears that can hear how our thoughts, our emotions, and subsequently our actions create both our inner and outer experiences. This amount of personal growth and evolution does take time, as we all know. Nobody was born quoting Charles Fillmore. And so practical spirituality requires us to meet people wherever they are on life's journey and their understanding of how to navigate it. It requires us to be creative in how we reach them. For instance, this means being willing to serve those who have embraced New Age practices and beliefs and using common threads of that belief to stitch together a bridge leading them deeper into a New Thought understanding of what they are experiencing. We can actively create tools and resources similar to what they are attached to in this phase of their journey, but grounded in New Thought teachings and philosophies. This allows us to practically guide them through the journey of the human condition and all of its peaks and valleys by meeting them where they are while sharing the transformative power of our philosophies. Take, for example, the popular concept of spiritual card decks. There was a time in Unity where tarot cards and angel cards would have been considered too New Age and not in alignment with our teachings. Yet when we create decks based on affirmative prayer, healing affirmations, prosperity, and peace, as we have, now we have a bridge between a commonly held New Age practice and our Unity teachings. Practical spirituality looks much the same as it did when it exploded on the scene 100+ years ago. The difference is in the evolution required for those of us seeking to help and serve in today's climate. It lies in our efforts to accept and understand the changing views, population segments, language requirements, and needs of those various groups, demographics, and seekers in the modern context, and being willing to position our teachings in ways and means that allow them to connect with and understand our message. The Fillmores purposely couched the Unity philosophy in Christianity at a time when it was the prevalent tradition. They did so in an effort to help those familiar with that tradition see the truth in the Unity message. In much the same way, we must now position our teachings in secular, non-affiliated, and even New Age belief systems so that our transformative messages can be heard and understood by the multitudes journeying along those paths. In closing, I would like to take a moment to honor and applaud the great works being done by each and every one of you and your respective organizations. At this particular time in our world, the New Thought message is needed more than ever and can serve as a profound vehicle for change. As we all know, every change, no matter how big or small, begins in consciousness. My prayer for each of us is that our collective efforts in service toward a modern, practical spirituality will manifest in profound avenues for us to touch people in such a way that allows them to elevate their thought, emotion, words, and actions, leading to personal transformation and the activity of spirit in all that they do. I leave you with this quote from Charles Fillmore. "The value of all service lies in the spirit in which you serve and not in the importance or magnitude of the service. Even the lowliest task or deed is made holy, joyous, and prosperous when it is filled with love." Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the talk and can glean a sense of what we are leaning into here at Unity Village in our efforts to touch the millions of new seekers, both inside and beyond church walls, with practical tools and resources that meet them where they are. You are doing much the same, not only sharing the Unity teachings, but embodying the principles by serving your communities in creative, innovative, and impactful new ways. I look forward to seeing more of your creativity, innovation, and evolution in the ministry and services you all are providing. I know it is right in line with what I think we are being called to do in serving the next generation of seekers. May each of you be richly blessed. Namaste.